3, 2, 1.
What's up, guys? This is Drew, and
this is Brad.
And the Unidentified Flying Podcast has returned. And let's see. First and foremost, first contact time. Let's see. ufppodcast@gmail.com, at UFP on Twitter, and Unidentified Flying Podcast on Facebook.
Send us a message.
Yes, send us just anything.
Follow us and never say anything ever again.
Yeah. But yeah, so this episode, we're just going to kind of do a general recap of follow-up of things.
There's been some developments and certain topics that we've talked about.
And actually, kind of strangely, I think it's kind of cool, like, you'll send me texts, like, after some of these episodes where you'll be like, man, we just talked about something that I'd never heard of before, then all of a sudden it's in the mainstream.
The next day.
You're like the next...
I'm like, we totally planned this, right?
Well, you might have planned, because you're the one that's, like, broken them both. Like, I mean, you're like the new Woodward and Bernstein, man.
Yeah, right here,
I'm
man.
just
UFP.
I'm just
blow
a guy.
It up from the floor up.
Yeah, I'm just some guy on the sideline, just kind of like, what? Who did what to who?
Yeah.
Peyton Manning did what? I mean,
but it's just, it makes it interesting too, because then, like, we can do this and we can talk about it again, and keep following along, I guess.
Yeah. So I mean, kind of a little bit of a all the president's men sort of thing going on here.
Panda watch. The mood is tense.
Okay, so what we're basically going to do here is just kind of go from our first episode all the way through our most recent one and just sort of follow up on anything that we think needs to be followed up on. Now, Our first episode was a Thunder. We talked about the Thunder, but our last episode we talked about the Thunder, so we're going to kind of save the Thunder stuff for last.
Yeah, we'll try and keep a bit of a pace, I guess.
Yeah.
If we might run a little long, but I don't think we'll be too bad on this episode.
I think this one's going to be
we'll try not get off the rails too much on one thing, because we'll get a lot to.
I want to say that this is going to be a short episode, but I've thought that before, and we've gone like well over an hour, so I guess we'll just play it by ear. So if we're saving the Thunder for the end, so what's first up on the docket here?
We did a lot of college football talk when we first started the podcast.
It was episode 2 and 3. We talked a lot about that.
And you wanted to bring up the fact that, like, I think last month not the Big 12, the NCAA actually took a vote, and they said they would allow the Big 12 to have a championship game.
Mm-hmm.
And
then the Big 12 turned right around and said, "Sweet, we don't know if we'll do that though."
Like, what the?
Yeah, what was even the fucking point?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like... Now, granted, there could be stuff...
I totally missed this. I saw a lot of talk about, like, David Bourne said, hey, we need to do better, and blah, 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 and, everyone's like, ooh, what does that mean? We're expanding this year? And now they're holding meetings, and then that makes everyone talk about...
Sure. And, there may be stuff going on behind the scenes. I'm sure there is.
Yeah,
this whole, bid to get the opportunity to play for a championship game with 10 teams happen behind the scenes a lot. So my only reservation here is if it were me, I would be very quick to say, we're going to do it. We're going to find a way to make it happen. Because and maybe I'm missing something here, but that seems to be the only thing that's going to keep us, if we have a really good team in our league, the Big 12, that's the only thing that's going to keep them out. I mean, we hashed this out in episode 3 where we talked about the merits of OU and Michigan State. Michigan State getting moved ahead. And your big, the big thing that you stood on was that Michigan State played this extra game. It was a championship game. They won their championship on the field. They beat a highly ranked team, a good team. And that's why you felt a lot of people moved them ahead of OU. So I would think, especially with the way that it's shook out, OU got in this year. But, the year before, 2 Big 12 teams got bounced out.
Yeah. So
it's kind of one of those, like, so 1 year it really sucked, 1 year it worked out for the league. Does that mean you're just going to assume it's going to work next year?
I think the people that run the Big 12 think it's like that even if you have a championship game. They look at it as like, oh, we have a championship game, and say we have a really good team and they should be put in there, and say they win their championship game, hey, even better, and they stay in. But what if they're really good and then they go to that championship game and then lose? Then it's like what you're talking about. Well, then they get bounced out. from that angle. So it's like,
although
you
OU
can't
has been
win.
on the beneficiary of getting stomped in a championship game and still getting to play for the national title.
Exactly.
When K-State beat the hell out of OU 35-7, like, I don't know.
I mean, it can go both ways.
Ago.
I think it's still going to trump just having an extra game, and it's just that much better on your resume for whatever team. If they go in there and they win, you almost can't argue against that. And I think that's why ultimately they need to add one.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be... You don't have to change anybody's schedule. So what if you have... I mean, honestly, at this point, I mean, with the way things have gone, who cares if you have, say, OU and OSU play 2 weeks or 2 games in a row? Because they obviously would... I mean, maybe there would be 2 weeks in a row. At that point, who really cares? Because, shit, man, we've had national title games where people were, rematches and stuff like that. We talked about the Alabama-LSU game, and, I mean, it could easily happen in other leagues. So at that point, I mean, I think the Big 12 needs to also add 2 teams.
Yeah, and it's just the fact that we sit idle for a week.
Yeah,
like we just don't do anything while the rest of the country develops, and we go.
They're out there on display. There's the
something's going on.
Yeah, so I mean, the people who make the decisions as to who plays in these big games and who doesn't. When they look to see, okay, so what did OU do this week, or what did any Big 12 team do this week, and the answer is nothing. Although we do schedule the games to where there are some games on that championship Saturday or whatever.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I don't think the voters know what's going on. They're like, yeah, well, you're still playing one less game, and this wasn't a championship game. It's just your regularly scheduled regular season game. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm still a big proponent of the Big 12 needs to add 2 fucking teams. The Big 12 needs to become the Big fucking 12. I swear, dude.
At a minimum,
stop calling yourself the Big 12. We can't call yourself the Big 10 because the Big. Maybe us in the Big 10
need more than 10 teams.
Maybe we need to trade names. I'm serious, dude. It's just stupid. Like, how dumb. These are supposed to be like
or
college.
Just rename yourself.
Yeah, these are supposed to be like academia and sports, on display, and we've got we can't fucking count. And we've been that way for years, dude, and we're just kind of proud of it. We're like, yeah, we're the Big 12 with 10 teams, and we're the Big 10 with 12 teams, and
14 maybe.
Whatever the fuck they have now. And
not
it's just
10.
And the Pac-12 is what? God, like 16 teams? I don't know.
I think they're actually 12.
Do they have 12? Okay, good on them.
SEC's just like,
hell, the SEC.
Whatever.
Hey, at least
they have
just
16. I
and they're just, but hey, at least they're not. They weren't the SEC 12.
Yeah,
they were just. We're just the SEC. Maybe we need to be like the Southwest, the SWC or something. Just call ourselves the Southwest Conference, even though we got teams in Virginia. Maybe don't call ourselves the Southwest Conference. I don't know. Just call us like the. I don't know. We just call ourselves the American Conference.
There's already an American Conference.
America
okay.
Conference. So drop the A. I don't know, something, dude. I just get so tired of I mean, if you try to introduce anybody, not that this happens a lot, but if somebody from another country came here and tried to understand these games, and you tried to explain the conferences,
they're already
to them,
lost.
They'd be like,
they're
so who are the 12 teams in the some cricket fan would be like, oi mate, how many? I don't know, that's like an Australian accent, but they'd be like, how many teams in the Big 12? It'd be like 10, and they'd be like, what?
Yeah.
And you have to sit there and explain just how...
They're just like, fuck this.
Yeah, so whatever. Anyway, so Big 12 needs to get to 12 teams. They got a championship game. They need to fucking play it.
There's rumors of them wanting to add, or they're having meetings about adding people or not.
Any names floating around there? Like, is Houston? I know Houston's always BYU, I've heard.
I mean, they always float those 2 teams out. Cincinnati actually got brought up. That would probably
Cincinnati.
That would be my number one throw-in. Not that I want that team or anything, but
no, I think it's
from all the angles of what the conference would look at as far as money and exposure,
you're getting into a big market.
It kind of puts a team a little bit in between us and West Virginia.
Sure.
Too, because West Virginia is just like that one team that's just
they're just out there,
way out there, and you're like, well,
they're the Neptune of the Big 12 conference.
Yeah, exactly.
Just way
sucks
the fuck
to be
out
you on
there.
road trips, I guess.
So hopefully we'll see. I guess we'll maybe have an update if anything comes out of any of that. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to talk about with college football?
No, that's pretty much it. We kind of did our first couple episodes we had a lot of college football.
Yeah, and there really hasn't been anything happening in the quote-unquote off-season. So
no, I mean, that's signing day, and everyone does this guy runs fast, and he runs hard, and he sports hard, and he sports harder there, and I really like this kid, and I think he's going to be a great player, and
we're going to make a big display.
I just covered the whole coverage of
we're going to make a big display over him sitting at a table with 5 different hats, and him like, I'm going to pick this one, psych, I'm going to grab this one, and everybody's like, oh!
And then you might not even hear that kid again ever.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of crazy to me, and I'm like, are these people, like a lot of these players, I'm like, how many of them like immediately play and are impactful? Like, aren't they going to be freshmen?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, not many.
It happens, but not.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
It's like a rookie, like on a grand scale of.
Yeah, I don't know. They make way too. I don't know. I think it's one of those. It's born out of the kids like it. They like to be the center. It's part of
the fans like.
I just can't, man.
This guy was a 3-star because this website said so. And
the draft is boring enough, and it means something. This shit means even less. And it's like, come on, man.
Let me know when football's being played.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it.
Fair enough. So, yeah, we'll be back with some more college football sometime later this year, maybe. I guess. There's really not going to... I mean, unless any big story comes out, we'll see.
Yeah. We also did a... kind of like a college football, and then we kind of threw in, like... the presidential election stuff was kind of heating up, and we just kind of threw that in on the back end of an episode.
Yeah, and this was back in what, November? Or?
Yes.
Okay, so now we
just kind of talked about, like... why voting on presidential elections, at least in a state-by-state basis, is just kind of like why should you put all your time and attention in that one thing when it's like you have your voice is so small.
Yeah.
Compared to like your local elections.
Yeah, stressing the importance of local elections.
The fact, like, just the election numbers and voter turnout and how many people are registered in the state of Oklahoma and just how abysmal it is.
Yeah.
I did pull up this one story that kind of relates to it, and the reason I thought it was kind of interesting is there's a statistician in Kansas that just lost a court battle. She was trying to get some access to physical voting records because they all use these Scantrons and electronic machines and bullshit, and they actually have hard copies that they supposedly keep somewhere. Mm-hmm. Well, she got denied from looking at them. The reason she was wanting to look at them was she's a statistician. Mm-hmm. She was looking at like the numbers for a lot of elections, not just in Kansas, but I guess like all over the place. I'll pull up a list of all the states she thought was kind of hokey, and she kind of found that like for Republican candidates, once the machine that was being used went past 500 votes, it would just break insanely hard for Republicans, enough to where it was like statistically, in her opinion, not possible. Like it was like, this is so much of an aberration that like we need to investigate this.
Like, what do you mean? Like whenever the Republican candidate would register 500 votes?
No, just the machine. Like anybody, they could have voted, Democrat, Independent, for Bozo the Clown, whatever. It just got up to 500 as just a count. It would pass that 500 number. It would start just breaking way statistically hard for Republicans, which some people would be like, "Oh, that means everyone wants to vote Republican." But it was like, it was just so weird that it was like it was doing this in so many certain places, and she just being a statistician, like she kind of thought that there was something wrong with that. And let me pull up to the state. She said that because Oklahoma was one of them.
Which, I mean, Oklahoma's probably one of the redder states.
Oh, yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like, you could make that argument, but it was just like, I'm going to listen to the person who's a statistician. Like if it's something weird, I would like to.
Now, is this stuff public record, or because I don't know?
Sort of. And that's what she was going to court over, and she got denied from looking at this stuff. Okay. So it was just kind of odd. I'm like, it's kind of a.
Wouldn't be the first, for either political party.
Once they went to electronic machines, you lost me. Because the fact that it's an electronic machine, third-party companies are then contracted out by the federal government to provide these machines. Now, I know there's all sorts of oversight, quote-unquote, but I mean, you lost me. Yeah, this is let's see, found strong statistical evidence of election manipulation in Iowa, New Hampshire, Arizona, Ohio, Oklahoma, Alabama, Louisiana, Wisconsin, West Virginia, and Kentucky.
Now, is this just on the presidential level or on all levels?
This was like a Republican primary, I guess.
Which one?
I think this was 2012.
Huh.
So it's been back, and that's why she's been poring over the numbers since then. She just kind of looked at it and was like, what the fuck? I can't tell you exactly what she thought that said what the fuck. She's a statistician. I'm not.
Sure.
I mean, I understand math a lot, but fuck.
Yeah.
A little over my head. And it was just kind of weird. I'm like, like I said, once they went to fucking electronic machines, I'm like, all right, like.
I mean, you would think that takes the human element out of any sort of bias of like, well, I know this guy voted for this guy, but I'm going to say that he.
But they've also shown where they could manipulate it.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think everything can be manipulated.
Fair enough. It's just, and that's my point. Like, it's just another easy. It's electronic. Look what you can do with computers and shit.
Yeah.
It's like or some states they just have like a touch screen, and they just go up there and boop boop, and I'm like. How do I know as a voter that actually counted? Sure. It could be like, yeah, I hit Republican and I just marked Democrat in the computer world.
Yeah, is there a way to...
It's kind of like slot machines. A lot of people don't like those technical computer gamey slot machines. They want I pull the handle, the mechanical wheel spins, and I can see it.
They want the one-armed bandit, dude.
Exactly, yeah.
I guess my question is, though, is I hear you, and I mean, if there's any sort of... impropriety or whatever, I think if she's, and I guess she pleaded her case and they decided she didn't have a good enough case to go on to do any of this, but if she does, I hope she gets the information she needs. But I guess my question is, what system is there that you could create where you do know that your vote's really being counted, with a secret ballot and all that? You know what I mean? It's just kind of...
That's a good point. And another point I would bring up is it's always a big issue with voter ID and having your ID and stuff, and
which, hey, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a fan of identifying yourself to vote, but
I would say that as a problem compared to shit like this is probably not as big of a deal.
Well, see, because I don't get it. If you don't have to show your ID, why do you even have to register to vote?
Well, I mean, I think that's how they. That's them.
That's how you don't get more than one vote.
Exactly. That's them already doing the problem. So it's kind of like my point, where it's okay, cool, you have an ID, but it's not really solving this big problem that is out there. There's not a big voter fraud problem, although some people would like to believe there is.
Well, sure. Well, again, I'll say this. I mean, if there was a big voter fraud problem, would we know about it? Do we know? A good point too, yeah. Do we know what the big problem is with if there are tampering with stuff? Would we ever really know about? You know what I mean? Maybe it's people like this lady who will crack open something to say, "Holy shit! Here, look at all this." Like she said, these impossible statistics. So I don't know. Like I said, I understand. I don't know. I really don't understand.
I'll give her a name. Beth Clarkson is her name.
And she's out of, where'd you say, Kansas?
Kansas, yeah.
Kansas.
Wichita State University, mathematician.
Okay. Well, I mean...
So if anybody wants to look that up and
I don't know how they couldn't give her the information while keeping everything secret, too. They could just give her raw data, I would assume. We had, person 1 voted this way, person 2 this way. You don't have to put their names there, and your vote stays secret. I don't know, but again, I don't know exactly the details of this trial, or her plea to get all this stuff. Yeah, so whatever.
Who knows?
Yeah, but I guess the only other thing really to say about this is right now, as it stands, I was just talking to you before we started recording this podcast. It looks like, Donald Trump looks like he's running away with it. Looks like it.
I don't know what the fuck is going on that side of the
Donald. He didn't win in Iowa, and then he just ran away with everything else since then. Now, granted, Super Tuesday's coming. Super Tuesday's going to really put some nails in coffins.
Yeah.
At least just from my perception, it looks like Donald Trump's going to be the guy. The real interesting one to me is the Democratic one, because I thought it looked like Bernie Sanders was just, guns blazing, dude. He was going to be the guy. And then all of a sudden this Nevada one happens and everybody's like, because everything I saw and heard, and maybe it was just me falling victim to just listening to what I was hearing instead of really looking into it myself. But I mean, it was just, dude, Hillary's done. Hillary's on the ropes. Bernie's putting her down for the count.
I never thought that.
And then now this week, it's Bernie Sanders is done. People think.
Well, mainly because Bernie Sanders doesn't do great in the South.
And that's where everything's about to start. Super Tuesday is going to be...
So, that's why it was a big deal with Nevada. Not that it's over.
But the way that it stands now...
He needed to win Nevada, and he didn't.
Yeah.
But he did a lot better than he even thought he was going to in the first place. So it's kind of hopeful. Here's my thing. Here's my whole take on that. None of this matters, right? The Democratic convention could get together, one candidate has more delegates or super delegates or whatever, more than the other. They could just go, you know what, we're going to nominate this person.
Yeah, but that would be, that would be really risky on their part to do that, because they could. If it's so 50-50, would it? But see, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to be 50-50. The way it's looking,
true.
Because Hillary Clinton's sitting at 500 delegates right now.
I don't even know. Yeah,
and Bernie Sanders sitting at 70. You have to get I think it's 2,000 and something or something like that to secure, quote unquote, as you're saying, the
theoretically the nomination,
to secure the nomination. Yeah. And everybody thinks, and the South is about to hit where everybody thinks, everybody's like, Hillary Clinton's probably about to pick up another 800 and something delegates. It's going to make Bernie Sanders the road to hoe for him is going to just be so steep now, which is just surprising to me, because I was kind of looking at it going man, I think this is going to be
He's pulled close here
Bernie
in the state,
and Trump.
Which is crazy enough. They just sent Bill Clinton here.
To Oklahoma?
Yeah, he was in Oklahoma City yesterday.
Really? I didn't know that.
Because it was Hillary was up 20 points and now she's not in Oklahoma.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. But
I still think she'll probably win here. But whatever.
It's going to be interesting to see. I think. I mean, if I had to call it right now, I think it looks like it's going to be Hillary and Trump.
Republican side, you know why I don't really care. 5 of the last 6 presidential elections, the Democrat has won the popular vote. Why would this time be different?
Well, I mean, if you're a believer in the pendulum swinging.
Yeah, no, but I mean, there 5 of the last 6. That's not really a pendulum swinging. That's it's sticking to one side. Is kind of my point. Now, you could take it to be is this the one time it finally happens because it's been stuck on one side so many times? Yeah. I don't think the numbers bear that out.
Donald Trump is not your typical Republican candidate if he does win it.
Yeah, I still don't see it happening. I
guess we'll see. I think they're going to be, if nothing else, I think the debates are going to be entertaining as hell to watch.
Oh yeah, totally.
Especially if it's Trump and Trump.
I kind of had the same feeling last time Obama got elected. I'm I could just look at the states and go, he's winning again. But people like to think, you never know if this one. I'm no, it was not close. He had 11 states that he needed to lose, and he could have just won any one of them and lost all the other 10. He still would have been reelected.
Yeah, but
and that's what I'm saying. Could have happened. Yeah, could hell freeze over? Sure.
But I don't think it's that.
I kind of thought it was. People had it so pinned down. They picked the election to the electoral vote, and it was so easy, dude. It was. I could have cared less in 2012. In this election, I could care less too. You know what? Because I just don't think Republicans win. Sorry if you're a Republican lover out there.
Well, ain't
happening.
I just don't. I don't think it's that cut and dry. Honestly,
you said, we'll see.
I don't think the keys to the White House are just owned by the Democratic Party now. Because
I don't think they are either.
Is it another 4 years that they, or is it another 8, another 12? That's why these things can change on a dime.
That's kind of the weird thing about the parties is the Democrats, man. They as far as the general election national audience, they own the Republicans.
Sure.
But on the flip side, Republicans own local, state governorships. From the bottom up, that Democrats have none of that. So it's kind of that's where our politics are, man. So I just have to tend to. And
I think the Democrats
going to win the general election.
Love or hate Donald Trump, I just think he's different enough of a candidate that maybe we might see some change there. But hey, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. I know. Well, I know it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't
think we have to worry about Trump. That's just me.
That's all they keep saying, and Trump keeps winning. I mean, they said we didn't have to worry about Trump was going to
in Republican primaries.
Well, yeah, everybody's like, yeah, he's going to be gone here. Give it a month, Trump will be gone. Well, give it another month, Trump will be gone.
Here's the problem with that. There's nobody else in that party that's worth two shits. You know who I would, just me personally, and also just objectively, like who that party should nominate? It's Ricky Rubio. Or not Ricky Rubio. I keep wanting to call that guy Ricky Rubio, man. The basketball player from the Minnesota Timberwolves. What the fuck's his name? Marco Rubio. Thank you. Yeah. He's Cuban, right?
I can tell you don't give two shits about any of these guys.
No, I don't, because I'm like, it's a complete waste of my time.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some Hispanic heritage or whatever. So yeah, so does Ted Cruz. I mean,
wanting to see that birth certificate, man. I heard he was born in Canada.
Yeah, I hear he produced it pretty quick too.
I still have my questions about it though. Was it the real birth certificate?
I don't know. I mean,
was it a photocopy? I don't know.
I mean, if he was a photocopy, he was pretty quick about giving it out there for people to scrutinize. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So did Obama, but nobody gave two shits about that.
I think it took Obama a handful of years.
Well, he couldn't do it. No, it didn't. He didn't. He couldn't provide it anyway. You know why?
Why?
Because Hawaii holds on to the birth certificates. Hawaii had to be like, "Hey, this is our fucking."
So you can't request.
And they can't. They can't
request a copy of your birth certificate in Hawaii.
No, they'll give you a copy of it. But that's what everybody attacked. It's like, oh, it's a copy. It's a copy of a copy. Somebody put this in a copy machine somewhere, and I'm sure they changed a little T here and a dot on the little I. You never know.
Well, yeah, I mean that was some deep conspiracy theory stuff, but
from Donald Trump, no less.
Yeah. And I think, hey, I mean, it took some time.
Isn't he like suing Ted Cruz or some shit because of that, or
I don't know.
Because of his birth certificate?
No. I think the thing he said was he mentioned this is. I mean, maybe things have changed. He presented the hypothetical that if Ted Cruz, if his birth certificate isn't in order, and say Donald Trump was like, say I win the nomination, I select Ted Cruz as my vice presidential candidate, we are sued because of his birth credentials. I'm not okay with that. Uh-huh. So that's why he was saying, like, I'm hesitant.
I like the word you use there, because that's kind of how I think of Trump being the president. Hypothetical.
I mean, we'll see, man. We'll see.
Oh, yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
All right.
I guess let me ask you this. How much crow would you eat if Trump did become president? How shocked would you be?
Oh, very, because it's not happening.
Okay. Let's mark this down just in case it happens. What is today? Today is, I don't know, someday in February. Just we'll remember this.
I'm glad to go down on the record on that one.
Okay, all right. So we'll see. Well, let's get away from politics.
What's the next step on the docket here?
I have no. Was it let's see.
Probably Holtzclaw. We did a Holtzclaw episode.
Yeah.
We've had some developments.
Yeah, we did a...
Supposedly he's missing.
He's missing?
Well, they moved him to some other...
Like he's in jail, right?
Yeah, they moved him out of state to some jail, and like usually they provide like where he goes and his public record stuff. No one can find out where he's at.
Why would that be?
Well, they said it was for his protection.
Huh.
But... Yeah, so technically no one knows where the fuck he's at.
Okay. That's strange.
That's
what was it
I heard?
I heard something. Was it you that was telling me, or somebody else that like I think it was you that was telling me some news outlet of some sort did a report on Holtzclaw and sort of gave this whole like, oh, this poor guy.
Yeah, it was the article that got taken down. It was on SB Nation. And it was written by a guy that writes for...
Which, real quick, before you go into that,
okay.
Just in case people didn't listen to that particular podcast, Holtzclaw was an Oklahoma City cop. He essentially raped, I don't know how many women?
I think he had 32... It was 16 women, if I'm not mistaken. 13 or 6...
Double digits.
Yeah, it was like... And I think that's how many charges... I think he had like 34 charges brought up on him. And he got 263 years in the end.
Okay. And so now...
He was found guilty.
And now he's who knows where.
Yeah. They went for sentencing. His lawyer tried to be like, hey, there was some like evidence withheld. And I guess that's something we can kind of talk about too. Like there's this whole movement out there that, like, hey, they believe, Holtzclaw is innocent and he was framed, or blah blah blah. And here's my take on that. Like, it's a little far fetched because I actually went to, a lot of these people are like, go to this website and read this and check it out. And one of the websites is run by his family, so okay. And the other website is it's John TV, and it's run by, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's that guy that follows people around in like the parks up in Oklahoma City with a video camera, and he's like, "Hey, you got a prostitute?" And he goes up there and like tries to bust them and gets their tag number and turns them all in and stuff. And someone on Twitter brought up a really great point. Was like he got hired, I think, from the defense. A guy named Adams, I think, was the defense attorney for Holtzclaw. He hires this guy to consult, I guess. And to me, and this guy brought this person on Twitter brought this up, and it was kind of interesting because he said, okay, this defense attorney specializes in defending people that have sexual misconduct against them, whatever kind of crime. Mm-hmm. And he's also paired with this person who goes and busts people for sexual misconduct, who then need a lawyer to represent.
Sounds like a racket to me.
Yeah, it kind of sounds. Yeah, no shit. So we want to speculate like, was Holtzclaw really innocent? Yeah, these are the people bringing that whole case up. Huh. So yeah, and plus I looked at like a lot of the evidence they have, and a lot of it's like, this black woman, like she lied once, and then this other one smoked pot once, and yeah, that's crazy. It just seems like. And there's more to it than that. I'm just kind of pulling this off the top of my head. It just seems like, it's just you had this preconceived notion that, like, how dare we trust these people over a cop, and that's it.
Yeah, it's almost like the notion that, well, you can't rape a prostitute. Like, it's almost like what they're...
like, that too.
Like, were they trying to say, like, all this sex was consensual?
And there was actually... someone on Twitter got into it with this dude, like... She was basically, she's I think a writer for the Oklahoman, and she goes to this website kind of like I did a few weeks ago, and like looks at this and goes, "Really?" I mean, like,
yeah. So this is the SB Nation thing.
No, this has nothing to do with that. This is just his website he has up talking about the Holtzclaw case in the first place, and his reasons as to why he really is innocent, and
gotcha.
They we shouldn't just think, oh God, he's just automatically a rapist, or a convicted rapist, because that's what he is. Let me pull this up because I'll give a shout out here. But yeah, it's just like, that's your evidence, and like I said, the guy's running a racket. It almost seems like. Yeah, that's odd in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, it just seemed like there was just a preponderance of evidence against this guy. It wasn't like the prosecution's case was shaky. I mean, it was, a slam dunk basically to convict this guy. It was just a matter of what was his sentencing going to be, but. I mean, hey, I don't know, like, what would the conspiracy be? Like, what's the I don't know. I don't know.
Well, like in this article we've kind of brought up, the article has some really good stuff that I did not know about. And in fact, in my opinion, it could have been a good article. But what it does is, like, it takes all this information about Holtzclaw and his past, and it's like he had aspirations for the NFL. And it talks about, like, he was...
this is the SB Nation article.
Yes, he was, like, working really hard he was a linebacker. He played football, which I didn't know. He's wanting to walk on at OU. He's from Enid. Okay. And he's basically, like, he's too small. Just in my opinion, just me looking at him. And this is, I guess, what people thought, too. Like, he's too small to really make a big, jump into the NFL or play for OU. He ends up getting a full ride to Eastern Michigan. And he goes and plays football at Eastern Michigan, and no one ever confirms anything, or actually there's no investigation into it. But they just find it funny. Like, he gets insanely big, for starters, and they just say, like, it's kind of like that kid was really small. Not that it's not possible to beef up lifting weights, but they were kind of like insinuating that. It could have been more than that.
He might have taken some shortcuts.
Yeah, and I guess this was actually something I did not know. He did admit when he was being interrogated for this whole trial, or just the charges, that he did take some over-the-counter testosterone boosters that were legal. But he was like, that's it.
Yeah.
And it was never found out if he actually took anything more. And I'm like, God, that's what the fuck? That's already red flagging me. I mean, I hate to say that but just how the fucking NFL and football players are these days.
Sure.
So that was odd. And also, what else was there? It was just like his kind of delusion of like when he did get like he finished out his career at Eastern Michigan, and that doesn't he has a great career there, and it doesn't work out. He doesn't get called up for the combine. He doesn't get drafted, and he just like he can't believe it in a way, I guess. And I'm just like, dude, like really? That's almost kind of like you need to like face reality at a point, I think, And I'm like, why couldn't this article have kind of played into the fact that maybe this guy was a deluded, crazy motherfucker? You know what I mean? And look what he did when he got the opportunity, because a lot of people, like this kind of article starts out like it seems like they just can't wrap their head around how this guy who never had a prior past or any problems in anything really, much less what he was convicted for, how could he end up doing this? But then the article turns into like, well, he didn't make it, and in the face of all this adversity and these down times, and he was not in control of his destiny anymore. He just happened to rape a bunch of people, and as he was a police officer, and gee, bummer, guys. Isn't that sad? And that was the article, and everyone was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it almost tried to cast him in a sympathetic light.
Yeah, which, I mean, is it tragic? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, it just seems like it's kind of crazy, like there could be so many people out there that they just have like this preconceived notion of how dare we go against this cop. And is there a slim chance that maybe there is some of that's true? Yeah, possibly. But he, I'm just saying, like, it was vetted.
Well, my question
by
is,
a jury. It was,
my question is,
if his defense lawyers had any inkling of any of that crap, they could have like brought any of that up.
Yeah, but you know what? Why? What the fuck does any of that have to do with the crime?
What do you mean?
Like, any of this stuff, like, okay, so he's got a sob story. Fuck, man, we all got sob stories.
Yeah.
I'm not out there fucking breaking the law and, like, committing one of the worst crimes you can commit. If I were to do that, if I were to do something as heinous as that, I wouldn't expect a judge, a jury, the public to give a fuck about the bad times that I had. You know what I mean? It's kind of, okay, so, what, this guy had a full ride scholarship, got his school paid for, got to play football.
Sounds good to me.
Probably had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Probably enjoyed himself. And then, just wasn't able to go to the professional level, and then he was able to get a job as a police officer where he has a lot of authority and, responsibility too. And then he's, basically shows that he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like, well, what does one have to do with the other? I mean, I don't get it, man. I mean, cops are supposed to be held anyway to a high standard.
Yeah.
Public servants in general, higher standard. You know what I mean? It's one of those like, oh man, you're a cop, dude. You can't commit a misdemeanor and be a cop, and
that's why these people that try and defend him, and I'll give a shout. Like, she was actually one of our first followers on Twitter, if that means anything. I don't know if she gives a shit about our podcast, but she writes for the Oklahoman. Brianna Bailey. She was the one who just like mentioned this to this guy. I can't remember his name. He runs John TV, and he just like started responding to her like, oh well, just fuck you, and he tries to give like his evidence, and then it just devolves into this. Like, well, you're just a dumbass, and if you knew any better,
sounds like a really well thought out position.
It's just give me a fucking break, dude.
Yeah, well, hey, shout out to her.
I'm sure he's chasing somebody in a car in a park right now, busting that big
chaser.
Prostitution problem we have. We all fear about, and when I wake up every day.
Yeah, no,
not that that's a problem. I don't give a shit.
I mean, that's a whole nother opinion. I mean, personally, I don't. care, but whatever. I mean, if this guy wants,
like I said, it's kind of interesting that he's got this connection to this defense attorney.
Sure, yeah.
Like I said, we want to speculate. Let's speculate on that.
I mean, hey, we want to look into people's backstories. Let's look into that backstory.
I'm kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I should start a website up and write a whole conspiracy on it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
we're all about conspiracies here at UFP.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, maybe I'll keep these guys in mind if I ever do something particularly terrible. I'll be like, oh wait, let me get these guys to put out the sympathy story for me or whatever, because I was born and lived a decent life and then did some really terrible shit, and you should feel sorry for me or something.
It was an epic Twitter spat. I'll say that.
I don't understand.
It's very entertaining.
That just makes no fucking sense. Whatever.
I know.
But hey, I don't understand why the guy's. I mean, it's supposedly for his own protection, but whatever. I kind of don't have much else to say about the guy. I think he's gotten what he deserved. Yep. So
he can have an appeal.
Yep.
Whatever.
I mean, I think he should he should get all the due process that anybody should, and it sounds like he did, and he was convicted, and now due process is going to continue because he'll get appeals, yada yada.
Yeah, where the hell is he?
That's the only kind of like, what? Yeah, I don't know. That's
I just kind of somebody brought up a point where it was like, shouldn't his victims know where he's at? Like,
yeah.
I
mean, if they moved him to Ohio, and one of them was thinking about moving to Ohio, maybe they would not want to move there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
But we're for his safety.
Yeah, his safety. Yeah.
What the fuck? Anyway.
All right. So let's move on. Let's see. So then the next episode we had a little bit. We talked about Disney, the quote unquote evil empire. Now this isn't exactly Disney, but we did talk a lot about superhero movies that Disney's been making. Iron Man, Avengers, Thor, Captain America, all that. You have seen Deadpool. What'd you think?
I was thoroughly entertained. It is very R-rated.
So it's a hard R?
Yeah, well, I've just seen someone where it's slightly violent, but it was still pretty good. There's no slightly about it, at all.
Hyper violence.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. That's how I would put it. I don't think it's like NC-17 or XXX rated or anything, but like I said, it is what it is. And yeah, I was actually pretty entertained. It was pretty good. I don't know how it goes forward if they want to make more Deadpool movies, because to me that's kind of like you haven't seen it, right?
No.
You'll see it. It's kind of you'll think okay, just how its presentation, it's kind of a one note thing.
Sure.
So that's kind of why I'm saying past here, not that it couldn't be good.
They're gonna have to. I mean, it has done so much big business.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. I fear is how Hollywood reacts. Oh wow, they're excited because an R-rated movie did really well.
Yeah,
never really done that well before, especially this time of year, all that type of thing. They'll try and replicate this.
Yeah,
and they'll fail miserably most of the time. I mean, you never know.
Yeah,
but usually they fuck it up.
Sure.
So I can't wait for that to happen.
Yeah. Okay, so that was just kind of a blip there. Talk about that real quick. Now, our next episode, we talked about the whole Scott Pruitt, the AG thing with, his funding and the state auditor looking into him. Was there any follow up on that?
Not that specifically, but he actually, we kind of talked about how he had some lawsuits against the federal government and the evils of government overreach. And I think one of the ones he was really happy about. I wouldn't say that we won the case. They put a stay on it, I think. And the stay was Obama did a bunch of EPA regulations against coal and certain things like that. And we as a energy state said no, or just any Republican, we sued because of that, because we didn't want to comply with these EPA standards. We were basically saying Obama can't just say this. Well, that's debatable. That's why it went to the Supreme Court. Well, they voted 5-4 to put a to hold off on it, and then Supreme Court justice died.
Yeah.
That means anything that happens from now on, it's a tie goes back down to the lower court. And whatever they decide.
There's a whole bunch of conspiracies are immediately popped up about all that with Scalia.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I
mean,
it came out of nowhere, and they haven't done an autopsy.
The dude was 80 something.
Yeah, but they didn't do an autopsy. Supposedly, when he was I don't know if this is true, but when he was discovered, he had a pillow over his head. You know, I'm just saying. I mean, you know, all right, I hear the slow hum of black helicopters in the distance. No, but I mean, it's just kind of some stuff that came out, and you're like, well, why didn't they do an autopsy?
Yeah.
And, you know, just, I don't know. But whatever. I'm not saying that, like, you know, Obama snuck in there and, like, you know, fucking knifed him or anything. I'm not saying that.
You aren't?
I'm just saying that, you know, it was probably Hillary Clinton. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But no, I just, you know, I'm not trying to laugh on the guy's death either. I think it's sad. I mean, I thought he was, I think even the justices that I've disagreed with, I think a lot of them have given some good, thoughtful opinions whenever they've ruled on things. And Scalia is one of those. I've read some of his opinions before that I agreed with, and some of them I disagreed with. I didn't think he was a bad guy or anything. I just think he had his beliefs, and, you know, just like any of these justices do. Yeah. I mean, as much as we can sit here and argue, you know, who's, you know, the merit of, you know, their beliefs, I think some of the problem with the Supreme Court is the fact that it is kind of we almost look to them to make the laws, not interpret them like they're supposed to.
Well, I mean, you look at the past so many years, there's three branches of government. They've been the one doing the ruling.
Exactly.
Because
and that's
legislative branch can't do shit.
Yep.
The executive can't do shit because of that first branch that I just mentioned.
I don't know. Obama's pulled a lot of executive orders, and
that is why, because he can't do shit with the other branch. Guess what happens?
You can debate.
So guess what happens? They then sue each other, and then that third branch comes in.
Yeah, and I think,
that's what I think
in the end, I think government's not really working the way it's supposed to, and you can argue who's at fault here, but I just think at the end of the day, I don't think the three branches are working the way they're supposed to. But that's just my personal opinion.
I'd say
I'm not even going to get into...
Another way you could put that is like they're working as best as they can given the political climate.
Sure.
Which is not much.
Which is pretty fucking catty.
Exactly.
I mean, I have, you know, I'm a libertarian. I sway to the right on some things. I sway to the left on some things. At the end of the day, I'm... socially and stuff like that, I'm probably have more in common with left-minded people. I really don't care what people are doing, you know, bar they're not violating anybody else's rights. You know, financially, I think I'm more of a kind of conservative, but you know, whatever. I'm not I guess my point being, I feel that I kind of have a lot in common with both sides of the aisle. And I can't help but look at the way, like you were saying, the political climate is just fucking catty as fuck.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's good for the country. And there's guilty parties on both sides and in the middle. There's people that are supposed libertarians that are just as bad as any of, you know, Republican or Democrat, or, you know, liberals or conservatives, you know, progressives and, you know, religious right people. I just don't think at the end of the day the public's interest is being served as well as it could be. So, you know, and that's no big, like, you know, I'm not trying to make any big political statement like, you know, I haven't been the biggest fan of Obama. I wasn't the biggest fan of Bush. I wasn't the biggest fan of Clinton. Hell, I don't know. I don't know where you go back.
Sounds like you just hate government.
I mean, hey, the way that government's been run since, hell, man, a long time since I've been alive.
1776.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if I would go that far back, but I just think there's a lot of impropriety, man. I just think there's a lot of I think government's too big. I'll say that much. I mean, you can.
That's debatable.
You can pull from that what you want to assume about my beliefs from there, but I do think government's too damn big.
Okay.
So, you know, hey. Anyway, so
we're talking about lawsuits.
Yeah. So, but I mean, has anything else really come of that specifically?
No, not that specific issue. Like, he also had some we got our lawsuit with I think we're paired up with Nebraska, maybe Kansas, and we're suing Colorado.
Which has that gone anywhere?
Well, that might not even get heard in the first place.
Okay.
And then especially with Scalia dying, it really might not get heard because he was someone who would have been like, yeah, let's listen to that.
Okay.
So
all right,
don't think that's going anywhere. Anyway, I don't understand. Like, talking about the EPA thing, I'm like, great. You know, it's kind of like just a waste of time, in my opinion. Like, I know we want to protect we're an energy industry driven state, and we have a lot of coal we still use and stuff. But I'm like, is that something we really want to defend? Look at the business trends favoring like things like renewables and wind and all that type of stuff. Like, and I don't even have to be progressive to be talking about that. Like the wind, pun intended, is blowing in that direction. Do I want to? And plus, do I want to be like, yes, Scott Pruitt, thank you for like holding off us regulating the coal factories, so I can when I eat fish, I can keep that same amount of mercury in the fish. Great.
Well,
yes.
I think too though, the coal industry is getting hammered, man. Like
it's been getting hammered for a long time.
That's what I'm saying, and it's kind of like, well, okay, cool. So let's go to wind energy. Cool. Let's kill coal. Oh wait, we can't.
Yeah,
we don't have wind. That infrastructure is not set up.
Oh yeah, we're enough of it in the first place.
It seems to me a lot of we're cutting up our nose to spite our face. I understand if you want to go to a cleaner type of energy. I get it. Yeah. I'm okay with it as long as it works. But I mean, we can't stop using coal right now unless we want to radically change the way that we live our lives.
I think we use more natural gas than we use coal anyway.
Which and that's Oklahoma.
And that's still Oklahoma. Yeah.
But I understand an attack on these types of. I understand why the state might get involved and say, "Hey, yeah, we don't have a big coal industry here," but
I think they do, honestly.
But I mean, we're not like the Appalachians. I mean, that's where the coal industry is.
We're not Wyoming and we're not West Virginia.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm kind of like, if you see a threat against these natural, what would be considered, people would say, oh, well, that's dirty energy. Okay, I mean, I get you. Yeah, coal's not clean. I get it. But if you are a state that's big on natural gas, fracking, which we'll get into that in a second, if you see a threat against those things, even if it's not necessarily fracking, but it's coal, and you're like, yeah, well, eventually, if it's coal now, it's us later. So let's fight it now. I understand that if that's the mentality. I don't know if that's the mentality. And I understand there's a lot of fucking money at play, too.
Yeah.
I get that. But I'm just saying, it's not like we can just shut off coal right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a big fan of if we can figure it out and go and make it to where we don't need coal anymore, okay. But in the meantime, there's a lot of people. I mean, it's not like the Appalachians and stuff. It's not like those guys are rolling in money anyway. These coal miners are already pretty fucking poor, and now it's like, dude, I'm just saying for somebody to sit there and do that, and then also say like they're all about jobs and protecting the American worker. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, you totally got a point.
I'm kind of like, man, I understand if you have an imperative in your mind where it's like we have to get to cleaner energy. I'm with you. Why not go to cleaner energy? If it can be done, why the fuck not do it?
Yeah.
But I don't think you just leave these people behind.
No, and they also have. It's kind of like what you're saying. They have to be not just protected, but like they've got to have a voice too.
Sure. And that's kind of gets us into fracking and stuff, which that was the earthquakes.
Sierra Club did a lot. They're suing a lot of the energy companies. I think Devon is one of them for these earthquakes. Which I sent you. I don't know if you read all about that stuff, but I sent you, anytime someone you always kind of phrase the question like, what do you think it is as far as the earthquakes? I'm like, they know what it is. It's not a question.
Yeah,
that's what's causing it. And they actually, we had the big one the other day.
Yeah.
Woke you up.
Yeah. Well, no. I was already up.
I
was in my room. I was watching Netflix, and then
earthquake.
Yeah, I texted you right after. I was like, dude,
holy shit,
just had an earthquake, man. Yeah. And I felt that, man. My door started rattling. My bed was kind of shaking. And I was actually happened to be watching Supernatural at the time, so I was kind of like,
"What's going on?"
Yeah, I hope the Winchester boys are on their way here because shit's about to get serious. But no, it was just an earthquake. But yeah, no, I was kind of.
I guess they did decide. This is I can't remember the place that or the institution that decides this. It's like the Oklahoma Corporate Commission, whatever that is.
Corporation Commission?
Corporation Commission, okay. Yeah. And they decided that they need to do a big reduction up there where that earthquake originated from, because that's where they do a lot of the injection wells all over the state. But they kind of range from like mid-metro Edmond all the way kind of up north of like Woodward and Altus.
Which something you told me that was.
Let's get those Alva. Shit, I get those A towns. Sorry if you're listening from there. Yeah. I get Ada, Altus, and Alva totally.
Yeah, I think it's Alva.
Totally mixed up.
But something you told me the other day that I was shocked about. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Was that like Texas pays us, or pays
and not just them, other states, New Mexico, and
to take their wastewater,
and dump it here,
in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So it's not only our fracking and our waste, it's other states' waste, and I'm kind of like, well, why would they do that?
Well, you got to think Arkansas shut it. There's other states that have already gone, oh shit, these are causing earthquakes, let's shut it down. Yeah. And they're not as energy driven like we are in our economy. They had a much easier time of going, hey, we need to do that.
Yeah, which makes me.
I'm just gonna theorize here. Where do you think that wastewater that was getting ejected in those states went to then? Oklahoma, baby.
Yeah, it just kind of.
And I think that's what kind of plays into this lawsuit is they're suing the energy company. I think let's just say Devon. I don't remember if there's more attached to that, like more companies other than Devon, but they're basically saying like, why do we need to have insurance to cover a man-made problem? Mm-hmm. And why should this... They actually want an independent entity that can go, hey, we need to stop this, that, or the other as far as wastewater, other than this Oklahoma Corporation Commission.
Which I know OU has a big geological survey department and stuff. I wonder... I don't know if they... I'm sure they have some, I'm sure they've done research.
And that's, like I said, who gives them money?
Yeah.
That's the fucking problem. Is like that's what these people are basically suing for. Is like, how can you be independent when you've got people going like kind of like we alluded to, like, man, these companies have to keep dumping this wastewater because the climate's so bad with oil prices. They're in so much debt, and
they can't just stop production.
Yeah, and somebody didn't I text it? Like I think Sandridge, they're going to start skipping interest payments on their debt.
Which that's
who's going bankrupt?
Yeah,
that's basically the call around that entire industry. Who's going to survive? Who's not?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know that there's any better way to get rid of this wastewater or whatever. They call it wastewater, but it sounds to me like waste sludge.
It's all sorts of shit.
Yeah, it's not just water. Like water almost seems like something maybe the energy company's like, we'll call it wastewater because water doesn't sound so bad.
Put it in a bottle and say it's Aquafina 2.0.
Yeah. So but it sounds to me like this shit is like it's not.
It's toxic.
It would not look like water if you looked at it. You wouldn't be like, oh well, that's water. It's wastewater, but it's water.
No, and I had a lot of problems because like I read one. I believe it was an editorial from the Tulsa World, and they basically said wastewater isn't the problem, and they just went through this whole thing. It was like, hey, we just don't think it should be blamed. And then they had an interview with a guy from I think the Oklahoma Geological Society, and he basically explained what we explained on our first podcast covering this. Like, this is how it works. The wastewater goes in here, does some slippage, earthquakes are caused. It shouldn't be that big of a deal, but the thing with these wells is like underground, they are huge and they cover a huge area.
And they have to go further down than they do to frack, even, right?
I think so. I'm not
because they have to go under the water table.
Yeah, well, they do that anyway.
Do they? Okay, to frack even. Okay,
yeah, with a lot of these wells and injection wells, they're just so much bigger. And he's like, it's happening on such a big scale. Something's happening. And then the article, the editorial concludes with, wastewater shouldn't be blamed. And that was it. I'm like, well, okay. So you've got your head up, oil and gas, his ass.
Yeah.
And then the Oklahoman, they put out the same kind of thing. The editorial, like, well, we think science should prevail in all this. Let's take a step back.
Well, hell, when the fucking governor won't even say the word.
My point. With they'll say science needs to prevail and we need to think about this and stuff. But then it would wrap the editorial up and be like, but you never know. It's just kind of crazy. I'm like, no, we actually do know.
Yeah.
It's not a question. It's not a kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. I mean, I'm a layman.
That shit pisses me off, dude.
I'm a layman here, and I think it can be boiled down to a pretty simple adage.
Yeah.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
And where there's wastewater, there's fucking earthquakes.
Yeah,
apparently.
You can put up like a map of like, hey, where's the injection wells and where's the earthquakes? Oh, look, they're on top of each other.
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
Exactly.
I mean, we could just go down the line of all the evidence and all the people that have, I mean, they know it's them. The people who are doing it have said, it's us.
Yeah.
We know it's us.
And we'll just, kind of a bit of a maybe sneak peek. We're going to do more on this earthquake stuff. We may have some possible involvement with some people doing a documentary.
Yeah, we might do an interview.
So, we'll kind of see what's down the road. But just to say, we're not done talking about this topic.
Yeah, the ground keeps shaking over your own either.
We're not going to have much of a choice because it's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, so let's move on from there.
Let's keep going.
The next episode was the X-Files episode. I haven't watched any of them. I know you've watched them. So far, you like them?
I liked them all except for the fifth one.
The fifth one, and I think it wraps up. It wraps up tonight, right?
Yes, it's probably taping right now.
So
5 minutes ago.
So the fifth one was kind of meh, but the other four before it, you enjoyed.
I liked them. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it's so hard to get people into. It's just a different type of world. We kind of talked about this a little bit in the X-Files show, but we were kind of more talking about like a technology standpoint, like in the show. I'm kind of talking about like, look at how a show comes out, and within 5 minutes, there's like 1 million reviews of it online. They've made a judgment, and 1 episode's been out. So It's like, what do you really know? I mean, it's just like we just live in a different culture.
Sure.
So I think some of that has to kind of play in if like someone says like, oh, it sucks, or it's great, or whatever. Me personally, as a fan, yeah, I loved it. Like I said, other than the last episode, which still had some funny shit in it.
But it was just overall, you were kind of like, meh.
Yeah, didn't work.
Which, I did see a thing, David Duchovny was interviewed, and he said that, he's into it, he thinks everybody else is into it to keep going, to make more.
I'm into it.
And this was, I believe, an interview
if you're listening, David Duchovny.
that happened over the weekend, so this is, since these episodes have started to come out, so hopefully there's going to be more.
Yeah.
And the other note there, and I kind of already followed up on this a little bit, but it's been a handful of weeks. So you and Steve, the guest we had on for the X-Files episode, you guys talked a decent amount about Supernatural. I hadn't really ever given it a good chance. I have since then. I'm on season 5, episode 1. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a really good show. I told you the other day, I'm not ready to just say it yet, but there's a part of me that's starting to wonder if this is better than the X-Files.
I wouldn't go that far. That's just me.
And I think what it is, man, is... And granted, I'm only on season 5. I still tout the first 6 seasons of the X-Files as just like, man, top notch. So I want to wait and see how well the legs are on this show.
Okay.
But I gotta say, 4 seasons...
Pretty good.
I'm really digging it. The thing they do that I think is really cool, and I was talking to Steve just a week or so ago, just talking about the show, and the good point he made was that every episode of Supernatural, even if it's small, every single episode pushes the main storyline forward, even if it's like a foot. Just a little bit, and then you'll have some where it's just kind of out of nowhere where you're like, oh shit, man, they just pushed it forward a good, man, we just pushed it a mile down the road there. This episode wasn't even about the main storyline, and then like kind of, towards the end or kind of in the middle, there's like this really big spike where something related to the main storyline kind of weaves its way in there, and you're like, oh shit. And I think that's really cool. The writing's really good on this show.
It's kind of this, now, it's kind of in between, like now... A lot of TV has to be that way. Like, it just has to be. It's kind of like... I think I was talking to you about this, like, it's the serialization of television.
Yeah.
Like, kind of with the different culture we live in nowadays, you can sit here and watch all this at one time. You don't have to sit here and maybe tune in this week and maybe miss a couple other weeks and then tune in another one. You don't have to write stories that can capture you just in the middle of a week for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
They can do what you're talking about, like maybe push the story...
Yeah, and I think it's kind of one of those...
Some don't even do that. Some are just... They're serialized, and that is...
Yeah, like this is one where if I were to tell you, like, man, I don't know what... I don't know if I could tell you to skip any episodes because...
You might miss a little
something,
exactly,
man, and that's kind of neat. And again, the episodes that I've been told were like supposedly the bad ones, I've been like, they weren't that bad. I thought they were okay.
Well, that's kind of what, when we're talking about X-Files, like, that was what was crazy about that show is, like... It didn't always do that, but it did it a lot. And what show really did that a lot before that,
Yeah.
And like I said, it doesn't do it on every episode.
Sure.
But just it following along that kind of storytelling. Having some fillers, having some, maybe off the wall episodes, but maybe they put a little bit of, like you're saying, a little bit of plot, maybe not, and then you have big plot episodes.
Yeah.
But you gotta think a lot of it before was just, not that it was never done, but just like sitcoms. Look at like a regular sitcom on a broadcast network. That is like the complete opposite of this stuff, where it's like you said, I could tune in this week and I could tune in 2 weeks from now or a year from now, and I don't need to know anything about the story.
Yeah.
I could just like ha 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 and laugh along. It's just different, and especially with these new technologies and stuff, and just new ways of watching TV and shows and things like that. It's just, to me, it's kind of cool, but it's just like things are changing. Man, it's crazy. Yeah. It's good. It's good and bad in a way, I think.
Yeah, and so I mean, if I just had to say right now, man,
you're liking it.
I'm really liking it, and yeah, well, I'll give another update later.
Okay.
I think eventually maybe we do a podcast about this because, man, there's a lot to talk about this show.
Force me to have to watch the rest of it.
There you go. So anyway, we're up to episode 9 of the 11 episodes we've done so far. And episode 9, I think really the only thing to talk about is we do have a soccer episode coming.
Yeah, that's our next episode this week. We're a little late this week.
We're going to have a guest on.
Yeah, we're going to have a guest on. We've actually got in touch with some people of the different
soccer clubs in the area.
Their supporters
football
groups.
Clubs. I'm sorry, football clubs.
Yeah, whatever. We'll talk about that. Their supporters groups and just things like that in general. So, pretty good episode. Even if you're not into soccer,
and I'm not really. So I think
it's going to be. If you're just like wondering what the hell is going on,
yeah,
it would be a good show.
Yeah, if you're somebody who's pretty oblivious to soccer, I got you covered because I'm going to ask a lot of the dumb questions to be like, okay, so what does this mean?
And I'm like really wanting to be into it, and I'm kind of in between. Like I'm learning, but I don't know like just next to nothing about it, but I know a little bit about it. So
you know more than I do.
Yeah.
But it's only about that. Everything else, I've got you beat.
Okay.
You agreed to that way too easy.
Whatever. I believe you, dude. Whatever you say.
Okay.
So we got the show, man. I'm here to refute whenever I need to.
Yeah, fair enough. You're basically here to just keep me honest. Let's see. So then we talked. You said you had something. Our next episode was we talked about
Peyton
Planet
Manning.
X and. Okay. Oh, we talked about Planet X and Nibiru.
Planet X. We talked about that. There's not really much to follow up on that. I did read something about like the people that have done the the math and their the chances of the one that kind of made the evidence for this discovery. And you like the way you read. We talked about this. The way you read some websites, it's like it's been discovered.
Yeah.
But it actually hasn't yet. So it's like basically what this guy says that is part of the team that, like I said, put this evidence out is like it's a very slim chance that it's not out there.
Yeah.
So Planet X showing up, everybody.
Yeah. Get ready. Okay, and then the other thing was the Peyton Manning thing.
Yeah.
Which I sat here and was like, Peyton Manning's a great guy. He's never done anything bad. You were like, well, except for sticking his balls in somebody's face. I was like, what?
And then that was another thing. The next day, that
shit broke. Everybody's talking about it.
That I guess some guy wrote. It's for the Daily News. Wrote some article about it, and I guess everyone hates this guy. And I think I don't know why. It might be with the Black Lives Matters things. I think you were kind of telling me this.
The Sean King guy.
I have no clue about what that dude does, and I quite honestly don't care to know.
Yeah,
but he kind of brought what we were talking about up.
Which I mean, I think
back up, which has brought up all this kind of legal depositions bullshit going on now, because as I told you about, like in that show, that happened. Then he brought it up again. Got sued again.
It just boggles my mind. This seems like the sort of thing that if he would have just at the time been like, yeah, it was really dumb of me to do that.
Yeah, and that's a great thing, because
we wouldn't even be talking about it now.
I guess she's suing again now, I think. And it gets into this, it's getting so far down the lawyer hole that even lawyers are like, oh my God, I can't even care about this. Seriously, like how each side is kind of like, well, my balls were really only here, but they were only there. Like, it's just the little shit. And, like, I'm serious. Basically, I know it, dude. That's why it's like, what the fuck?
I just hope
basically, Peyton Manning said he was mooning a guy. And this is... So he's a witness.
Yeah.
So, if we want to like bring this into the realm of the law here, you could question that guy and be like, hey, what does he have to say? Because supposedly he was supposed to be on the other end of this just fun mooning that Peyton Manning was happening to do on this woman's face. And, I mean, this is what's crazy. God. It's like, I guess this guy that he was supposedly mooning was never actually questioned. It's kind of interesting, like, even Peyton Manning's lawyers back in the day never had him, like, give your statement and we can just like...
It almost sounds like something that came after the fact to just like, oh, I was mooning somebody. That's my excuse.
This is what's funny.
That's the ticket.
This guy sent a letter to Peyton Manning. This guy who could be a witness that was supposedly on the other end of the mooning. I'm not sure when he sent this letter. This might have been back when this was like 2002, and this was all coming back up again because Peyton Manning and his dad wrote that book, brought it up. Yada yada yada. This is what he says.
That's what I'm going to bring up in my autobiography.
Well, some really guy's named Saxon.
Like
he played at Tennessee there, and he says, okay. Peyton, you messed up. I still don't know why you dropped your drawers. Maybe it was a mistake, maybe not, but it was definitely inappropriate. Please take some personal responsibility here and own up to what you did. Or what was said in the book. Jamie is a great trainer. Help her restore her credibility. Only you can do that. I never understood why you didn't admit to it. You would have endeared yourself to your fans that think highly of you. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe that a lawsuit for millions of dollars is the right way to go about it. We're talking about this Jamie.
The trainer.
Yeah, the trainer. He's like, I told her that, and her lawyer as well. Coming clean is the right thing to do. Bro, you have tons of class. But you have shown no mercy or grace to this lady who was on her knees seeing if you had a stress fracture.
Jesus Christ.
It's not too late. She had a tough go of it since leaving UT. You might say she asked for it, but she was minding her own business when your book came out.
Yeah.
So that's the guy who basically can just exonerate Peyton Manning.
Yeah, no. Kind of sounds like stop being a fucking idiot.
Yeah, whatever the case is. So just wanted to read that, bring that up. I even saw something else where it was like regarding when it very first happened, like there might have been some academic fraud going on with Peyton Manning, but there's the same thing. Never an investigation.
I'm never eating Papa John's again. Jesus.
Hey, dude, he's raking the shit out of that.
Yeah, really.
Stoner vote or not the stoner money in Colorado.
Yeah, but they got like a strain of weed named after him. Or something
but he's got a steak at Papa John's.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, when they get the munchies, when they get done smoking Peyton Manning.
Is there a correlation?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sounds like a racket to me. It's just like that one guy, the shit here in Oklahoma. All right, so, well, God, we can't get away from that topic fast enough. Holy shit. What an idiot. All right, so...
Retire!
Yeah, just be done, dude. Just go away. Okay, so, last but not least, we started our first podcast with the Thunder. Our most recent podcast, we did some talking about the Thunder. So let's just talk. I mean, we're already hour and 12 minutes here.
Yeah, we might run a little long, but that's it.
Let's go ahead and talk about the trade. The trade deadline, the Thunder made a move. They picked up, is it Randall Foye?
Randy Foye.
Oh, I thought it was Foye. Okay, Foye. Okay. So
when I first got into basketball, I looked at like some of these people's names and just guessed, and guess what? Was horribly wrong. So you're not the only one, man.
Okay, so Randy Foye.
Well, we talked about in the last podcast, like,
you were saying we needed a guard.
Well, a point
guard.
I mean, do we? It's tough saying that because I like Cameron Payne, but we were talking about like he's a rookie.
Yeah, if you're going to get in the playoffs, yeah,
that's a problem. And everyone else talking trades. You know what I think our problem is with this podcast, dude? We just need to put the word Thunder in front of it, and everyone would be like, "Hey, guess what? They just know everything about the Thunder," because that seems to be how the internet treats people following the Thunder. And a lot of people write, I don't want to like just knock everyone out there because some do write some really good stuff. There's blogs and podcasts and things like that just cover the Thunder, and just local radio people here too because they've got to.
Sure.
But it's just like they're so reactionary, So when this trade went down, they were like, "What? What about PJ Tucker?" We kind of talked about that, PJ Tucker and Courtney Lee. It's like,
which somebody else already had snagged Courtney Lee.
Yeah, and it's like, do we really need those guys? I mean, yeah, we could probably take those guys, sure. But I'm like, is that the move we're going to make, though? You know, I don't know. And that's why I kind of brought up the Cameron Payne thing. Because I'm like, that's a fucking problem. And guess what? We went out and got a veteran point guard.
Yeah.
And we shipped our other point guard we had that was this, you know,
we cut a lot of cap space. From what I understood, we cut like $8 million.
This is what Sam Presti does, dude. He does everything when he needs to. He doesn't just make a trade for a player. He does what he wants to. He gets what he tries to want to get. He makes great money moves at the same time.
Yep.
It opened up a roster space.
Yep.
And at the same time, too, like, this guy's good. I don't know what, you know. But we have this one game last night against Cleveland, and we have a bad game, and we got our asses whipped, and we could probably spend a whole podcast about what was wrong with that, and also how much it doesn't mean anything because it's just one game in February.
Sure.
But it's like, fire Billy Donovan, fire Scott, or not Scott, but fire Scott.
No, fire Scott Brooks.
Fire Sam Presti.
Hire him back just to fire him again.
Yeah, it's just like, that's what I'm talking about.
Against the overreact KC, man.
Yeah, it's just it plays more into that, dude. Where it's just like, get fucking real, man.
Yeah.
Like you could almost see, like when we traded for Randy Foye, like people go, what, huh, hey, good idea. It's just like, like they had to be convinced of it, you know. And I mean, dude, anybody can be a parrot, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anybody can just repeat shit that somebody else says, and I'm just like, we're just not going to try and be about that here.
Sure.
You know.
No, I'm with you. Hey, you called it, man. That's what we needed, and that's what we went and got. You know, and I think too, say what you want about that Cavs game, we had a bad game against a good team.
Yeah, it happened.
That's what happens when you have a bad game. You lose. When you have a bad game against... I
didn't get to watch the game, and I didn't tape it.
I watched some highlights, and hey, I mean, again, you know what? You know what the biggest thing was? Dude, Durant shot like shit. All of us, dude. Our three-point shooting was bad. Our field goal shooting was bad. Yeah.
It seemed like we were lackadaisical.
Yeah, it's one of those...
people want to be like, oh, the defense, that whole bit, but it's like, defense always boils down to effort. And if people aren't giving any effort, it doesn't mean anything if whether the defense is actually good or bad. It's just, they don't give a shit.
Yeah, and
maybe they're just being lackadaisical for all sorts of reasons. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that one of their, you know, like 2 or 3 assistant coaches aren't there. Maybe it has to be due to the fact that one of the assistant coach's wife just got killed.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. I mean, it could be maybe, like I've always told you, like maybe they had a bad burrito that day and.
Well, yeah, and again,
their stomach was upset.
If you have a bad game, you tend to lose games. If you have a bad game against good teams, you tend to lose games badly.
Yeah, remember everyone wants Dion Waiters to start? Well, now they fucking hate him again.
Yeah.
Well, one game.
That
one
carousel
game
goes round and round.
I guarantee you what really determines a lot of like the effort and like what a basketball team can and can't do is their psychological status, and that's why we talked about Golden State being in everybody's heads.
Yeah,
because what that does to you. Look at what Dion Waiters tries to do every time he plays Cleveland. Now, he tries to go out there and just remember how I talked about, like he's just kind of that guy where like I'm gonna go out here and ball when I could just pass it to KD or Russell Westbrook. Like, no, dude.
Yeah.
You can ball when you need to ball. All right, like not right now. Well, he goes out there and just like starts throwing up bricks, dude, air ball, trying to make something happen even more. And it's like that's totally in your head shit.
Yeah, and I think what's pretty
confidence.
What's pretty telling too is that it was Kevin Love that killed us.
Yeah, and that it was all sorts of shit.
So I think it was one of those.
J.R. Smith made 5 out of 8 3-pointers. Nobody even brought him up, but
yeah,
he did that
we're
too.
trying to. I think it's one of those like we're like, well, we'll just stop LeBron, and it's like, yeah, no, you gotta. You can't forget it, but Kevin Love is. It's a folly to think of Kevin Love as an afterthought.
Yeah,
because that dude can fucking play. He's not the premier player on that team, but
same situation, just like Ibaka. He's that power forward that can, he can game, he can ball, he can shoot, he can do all sorts of stuff. He can rebound like a crazy motherfucker, and they send him out there on the perimeter, and they want him to shoot a little bit, and he doesn't do enough, and people just start hating him.
Yeah,
granted, I don't think he can defend for shit, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
Same thing with Ibaka. We're like, well, he's not doing enough, but then he starts doing something else, and well, he's not doing that enough, and I'll get it. Give me a break. Give me a break.
Well, in the end, I think...
Yeah, now everyone's like, well, I thought I'd like Robertson coming off the bench, but I don't know. Yeah, we were already there, man. Yeah. Talking about how that's fucking stupid.
Yep.
Anyway.
So, yeah, I think, I think that really puts a bow on everything.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't really think there's anything else to talk about. So, yeah, we've got just to kind of say, we've talked about the road so far. Let's talk about the road ahead a little bit, just real quick. We got a soccer episode coming up. We've got a video game episode coming up. We're going to talk about, the...
Yeah, we meant to do that this week, but...
Yeah, but the kind of scheduling and stuff happened. Yeah. But we've got we're going to talk about the old classic 8-bit NES.
NES.
We're going to have a couple of guests on to talk about it.
We're going to do I don't know how to put this, like alcohol in Oklahoma podcast. It kind of started off as like craft beer and just beer, but especially with like the legislative session going on right now and all the developments going on with that, and now that affects the entire industry, much less the laws. I mean, we were going to talk about that anyway, and with it. So,
can I be drunk for this podcast?
Totally, that's
awesome.
The whole point.
All right.
But there's so much shit going on, so it's kind of just going to be a podcast about all that stuff.
Okay.
So that's coming up. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff for me.
Yep, and we've got all kinds of stuff, backlogged ideas. And hey, always, if you guys have any suggestions or anything, feel free to, let us know. Hit us up on...
Pull that piece of paper out.
Twitter, or send us something at Gmail. It would be ufppodcast@gmail.com. At UFP on Twitter.
Look at you.
And Unidentified Flying Podcast on Facebook. Send us stuff, man. Like, whoever's listening.
Yeah.
You got an idea for something you want to hear us, blab on about for a while, me to give a bunch of uninformed opinions on, and Brad to correct me and kind of, enlighten me on some stuff I'd never heard of before, like, Peyton Manning's balls. I'm sure those would get involved in, I don't know, I'm expecting his balls to come back anytime now.
You never know.
We'll be talking about Planet 9, and you'll be like, did you know, actually?
Cam Newton's looking for him over his shoulder, like, oh, shit.
Yeah, he's looking for Von Miller.
Peyton Manning's balls, too.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's a sentence I never thought I'd say. Peyton Manning's balls.
Anyway.
All right. Well, high-quality stuff here at UFP. So, yeah.
As always.
I think that's going to wrap it up, though. So we're going to hit escape velocity, get the hell out of Dodge. So, once again, you've been listening to the Unidentified Flying Podcast, and this has been Drew, and...
I'm Brad.
And y'all have a good one.